4 weeks long, we will have a specific case. Okay, so today we are very happy and proud that we can introduce you to allnex, who's going to present you their story from an on-site HRS environment and the transition that took them all the way to an integrated SuccessFactors solution in the cloud. Next week, SuccessFactors SAP will share a little bit more about the recent changes and the efforts they are taking in the localization of human experience management and SuccessFactors. Tuesday, the 2nd of June, we have another customer success story, and that time we'll host and learn from Vrije Universiteit Brussels how they have implemented SuccessFactors over the last 2 years. And the final session is again one where SAP will inform how their new kit, employee experience management, can be used actually to improve internal customer satisfaction. So it's not that much about not so much about how you can use it in an HR environment, but how it could be used in a company-wide setting to make sure that your internal customers, the employees, are more happy by the services, for instance, they are delivered from an IT department. Okay, there's just, well, given this is not like a small meeting and we're all sitting around one table sharing drinks, different, so can I kindly ask every one of you to put yourself in mute unless you need to say something very urgent, just simply to avoid distraction. If you have questions, no problem, there's a chat box, type your question in the chat box and the team will answer your questions after the presentation. Above all, I hope you enjoy the presentation and I hope we'll all learn from each other and we'll definitely learn from allnex and their story to implement SuccessFactors. And I just want you to know that, of course, we are recording this session so we can share it later on the SAPience website. So right now I'm going to give the words and the screen to Lieve from allnex. Lieve is the Compensation and Benefits Director, and she will share their story to the clouds. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, and welcome everybody to this virtual workshop or webinar where I'm going to try to guide you through some slides here of our journey that we undertook at allnex starting in 2018. But first of all, before we do that, I'm trying to move it on. First, a few words, who is allnex? Because not a lot of people know allnex as a company. We are not selling our stuff to customers, but rather to other companies. So first of all, allnex is a formerly Cytec Industries coating resins business, which was acquired by Advent in 2013, is a leading global producer and additives for architectural, industrial, protective, automotive, and special purpose coatings and inks. We are recognized as a specialty chemicals pioneer and offer an extensive range of products. I believe we have 6,000 products in our portfolio, going from liquid resins, additives, radiation cured, powder coatings, inks, etc. So as you can hear and see, quite a big portfolio. And in 2016, allnex and Nuplex were brought together to form one company with headquarters in Frankfurt. And this means that jointly together, we became a leading industrial coating resins company. As you can see from the chart here, I mean, we were a blend coming from different bits and pieces from forming now allnex altogether. Me, myself, I'm coming via the Solutia route, meaning in the meantime, I'm being sold like 6 times in the meantime. This is showing some of our key products that we have. I'm not going to go really much into detail as I'm not a chemical expert, but some of the industries we are selling our material to is obviously the paint industry. You all know the water-based paints that are now on the market, so that is our product is part of that. We also sell into the car industry, wood industry, and architectural arena for some of our products as well. How does our at allnex? So as you can see, we are present in a lot of countries, 38 locations. We have 33 production facilities. In total, something like 4,000 employees. Our headquarters is in Frankfurt, and we also have in Latvia, Riga, a shared service center. 4,000 employees is indeed not too big, present in a lot of countries and locations, which means we are truly global, but also small in a lot of countries, which is not easy if you want to implement success factors, but we come to that later on. So a few words now about the business case, like how we have built it a couple of years ago. So as you have seen on the previous slide, we are the result of numerous acquisitions in the past. And deal that we did between allnex and Nuplex, we needed to think as HR about how are we going to organize ourselves and structure ourselves. And there was obviously the expectation from the business that HR would be much more a partner to them and bring added value. But obviously at the same time, we still needed to make sure that things were running smoothly from an administrative point of view, running payrolls, etc. So, and obviously there was also some pressure on cost and creating efficiencies. That was also the time where we did have several systems. We needed to look how are we going to do that. And we also wanted, obviously, for the people and for ourselves to get to a more easier platform, easy to user-friendly, etc. So the answer to everything together and combining everything was the way forward was going more digital to free up time as well later on to do more added value things for the business and partner with the business. So why did we in the end move to a new HRIS system? So our integration, allnex and Nuplex, was absolutely not complete yet. We were still working with different systems. A lot of things were still happening in spreadsheets. Running the headcount report on a monthly basis was really a nightmare to get everything together. We also had limited automation for payroll processes, so we clearly had an issue. The system or part of our business was on PeopleSoft, which had a limited lifetime. It was really an old version. The 9.1 of PeopleSoft no longer supported, so also from that point of view, we had to do something. Our system was not GDPR compliant, and that was a clear need with the new legislation in Europe coming back in 2019. We also suffered from missing essential functionality. There was not or hardly any self-service, certainly not for employees, and for managers it was really limited. And that was clearly the road that we also wanted to go We wanted to foresee that, and in a modern tool, that was obviously a possibility to go. And with that, we wanted to increase employee motivation and engagement. In the end, we implemented quite a lot of workflows where mainly managers, but also employees could really start processes themselves. So the cost benefit of the business case was, on the one hand, we were there sitting with an old system which was license-based, where we had to do something in terms of making it more compliant with reference to GDPR. We needed to do a lot of enhancements if we wanted to bring the whole population into one system. And on the other hand, it was an old and end of life. So we started looking what were the opportunities here and the things that were available on the market. Going cloud meant that we could go with a yearly licenses anymore. Obviously, you have your implementation costs, but whatever you do, you have that. And we could benefit with a cloud version of enhancements done in the system, not only for us, obviously, but where we could benefit from. And as we are not that big, that was certainly something that was well going good for us. So as we said already, the benefits of the project, and this is the slide that we have used as well as the first slide, and always coming back towards our employees and our HR community. So we wanted to have, and key for us was the people-centric approach, and SuccessFactors is designed around what people need, how they work, and what motivates them. Aim was to go to one system with single sign-on that was going to have robust data, so no longer chasing for more than a week to get headcount together, was providing manager and employee self-service. We wanted also to have greater system integration and more links to other tools like payroll, but also like IT platforms and Outlook, etc. We obviously wanted leading functionality, and all of this to get more time freed up to do more added value work from a business perspective. So the system is really providing advantages for managers, employees, and HR, but it will and it did require a cultural change. And one of the things that is, please do not underestimate that. If you go for a new system, there is some change and change management to be done, and it requires time. So it's really something that you need to keep in mind from the beginning. So we took on SuccessFactors, so we decided that we would implement that. It is really a journey for us, as we have acquired 6 modules in total. We decided to start with core, which is the basic core data, which is in there. And then going to recruiting, performance management, and compensation, which are now all 4 implemented. Learn and onboarding, we are still working on and going live later this year. We also did a SWOT analysis with the pros and the cons, but I think most of them were kind of mentioned. It's obviously one single data system with robust data, leading functionality, including the better look and feel. And I can really tell and testify here that that is the case. Also, we got a lot of compliments from our managers and employees that the system is very user-friendly and much better than what we had before. It needed to be GDPR compliant. org charts we have in the system, which we did not have before, and we only did that on paper. So now we can really follow that through the system, and we even have 2 org charts, the one with people, but also a position org chart, which we have implemented. And obviously the benefit of the cloud is to have this functionality. We also saw this as an opportunity to have single sign-on, to have and to be able to review our internal HR processes, because we were so scattered around and coming from different angles and different legacies. We took advantage as well to streamline our internal HR processes. We did a shift to the left with manager self-services and employee self-service. There were quite a few workflow-based transactions implemented. We also did links to our payroll system. And we are now working still on onboarding, so that one is one of the later phases. A good thing and really appreciated by managers was the access through a mobile device, which is very something in the system. And all in all, it gives us better data and better overviews. On the other side, obviously the implementation costs, but like I said before, you will always have that when you do such a transition. And some other things was that because we went cloud before with PeopleSoft, we were on the premise. It required Works Council approval in certain countries, which is again something not to be underestimated because in countries like Germany and Austria, it took us quite some time to get through that. Change management, obviously, like I was saying already, very important to take that one on from the beginning and also make sure you have enough resources to work on the project. Some outside resources, obviously the ones knowing the system, but also of really people inside that know your culture, that know your environment, and that also have a little bit vision of where do you want to go and what processes, how should they look like. The implementation timeline was a phased approach. So we started in September 2018 with the project kickoff. And that was then the start of Employee Central, so the core data module, and the start of the recruiting project. Something that we did, because we were so scattered around the world, we did kind of 3 meetings in every region where we were present, and we brought the HR managers of every country together to what is the aim, how we did give a demo of the system as well, what were the capabilities, but we also started discussing there how for you should the system look like? How are we going to define the processes? And that was really a good thing, because from the beginning, we showed the people what the system could do, but everybody was excited to be part of the project, and that is really a good thing to have the noses all looking into the same direction. So we went live then 8 months later with Employee Central, with recruiting, 3 payroll interfaces, some other interfaces like to IT, to Outlook, also Kitri, some other systems and platforms that we have within allnex. And then for time off, time on, one country, because that one is really country specific. So there the approach that we have taken is to roll those ones in one by one. But for core, we went all the 38 locations together in one big bang. And then shortly after the go live, we started with phase 2, which is performance management and compensation. And then we also did the 3 other payroll interfaces, and we implemented GDPR related to that. That was successfully implemented at the end of last year, beginning of this year, as this is a cycle, performance going over into compensation. And that phase 2 was finalized at the end of Q1. And now we are working on the 2 last modules, learning and on and offboarding, which should go soon during Q3. So why did we select finally a cloud solution? So the promise of SuccessFactors Cloud is to deliver standard, effective processes wherever possible. And it also allows companies to build cost-effective custom applications on a secure platform. And custom, I would like you to take that a little bit between quotes, because the advice really is, please do not customize like you are using customize from the past. There are some slight changes and adaptations that you can do, but the more you tweak it, also the more maintenance you have later on. So my advice really is try to keep it simple and light. Was a lower upfront investment, faster implementation. As you have seen it, we have done core and recruiting in 8 months, and comp and performance in another 3-4 months. We can benefit from the design best practices, and we can also benefit from new releases and new enhancements that SuccessFactors is doing to its system. The contra is flexibility compared to SAP on-premise is lower than what we had before, but on the other hand, so far we did not really miss it yet. So it was a contra, which we thought in the beginning was going to be a contra, but so far, I mean, it's not really a contra. So this is the landscape that we plan to do. So Employee Central being the core HR data and the basic data of every employee around the globe. 5 modules, recruiting, performance management, learn, compensation, and onboarding, are all integrating with Employee Central. And then implementing self-service tools, workflows, links to payrolls and other integrated platforms wherever you want. And also the next step, which is not implemented yet, is onboarding, so that also new hires and recruits can do already certain things with the system. So all the ones that are green are done, and the next one is to come. Of working, so we have selected Flexo to help us through going through this road, to help us implement this. And I'm going to give the word now to Dimitri, who is from Flexo, who can explain a little bit the approach that they are taking when supporting their customers with this thing. So I'm going to roll my chair away now, and so that Dimitri can roll in. Because of Corona times, we need to be a little bit.
Okay, so yes, just for 5 seconds, I was the project manager for the whole rollout at allnex for Flexo, so I worked a lot with Lieve on all those projects. And as they explained, their aim was they wanted to be quite fast and profit from best practices. And this is why we proposed them our approach based on the Flexo accelerators. Our Flexo accelerators are actually prepackaged modules that we can roll out quite fast for every module from SuccessFactors we have. And so this is why, on top of the classical SAP Activate methodology you see in the middle, which is based on iterations, testing, etc., which is, I would say, classical for all SuccessFactors rollouts, and which is also advised by SAP. We put on 2 blocks on the beginning and at the end of the system, which is the beginning. We start from a Flexo accelerators, which already are pre-packaged. We already have the best practices to avoid having discussions about, okay, dear client, what do you want? And roll it the other way around, saying, okay, now we have a best practice. Why wouldn't you use it? Or are there parts that you really cannot use for legal reason or for other reasons? And only start on those gaps instead of starting from blank paper. This is all the part on the left. And on the right, after the system is rolled out, what we now do and we are setting up is also having a sort of survey cell with allnex, where we advise them based on new releases, on what is happening there. There's somebody talking. So what we do there is help them prepare the new release, advising, okay, there's new content coming in, what can be there, and support them with the system on the long run. So we have now decided to do a support contract where they can actually bring us back in. The advantage is we know the system, we know exactly how it has been set up, and start from there. I have to admit that allnex is amazingly autonomous. She's not here there, but we have another colleague there, Farida, who took it over. I've never seen it like that, another client until now. So they're really strong internally, but even then we work on those things to support them on the long run, to have the system always working like they would there. So you have all the parts below. So the parts on the left and right, so prepare and hypercare. This is what is, I would say, Flexo more specific. The middle is classical, so we work with releases. And the fact that we work with accelerators, it has also an impact on the cost, because instead of doing 3 iterations like you do on a classical project, having already a part that is pre-packaged, we only do 2, which means that first you go faster, and also on the long run for the client, the implementation part, is shorter and the costs are driven down, because instead of doing 3 iterations, you only do 2. So this is how we did that. Lieve said we start with Employee Central and recruitment because those were the burning platforms at the moment. We rolled out everything, and learning is live since yesterday actually for general use and will be there. So we are there, onboarding will come. But yes, so we're coming to the end of a great journey there, and it was really a pleasure to work with them. I'm going to put it back to Lieve. It will drive you to the lessons learned.
Hello back. So although we are not fully done yet, there are already some lessons learned that I want to share with you. So first of all is good preparation. And although it speaks for itself in every project, it's really true and really something that you need to focus on. So decide pretty quickly, what is it that you want? What base data do you want to capture? What do you want to report? What are the process flows that you want to give to employees or to managers, and how do you want to set up? So, but also set priorities. I mean, certainly before and during the implementation, because the times are so short, at least the cycle that we went through, you really need to focus on what is key, and the nitty-gritties, stop it or wait for it until after the project is finished. But try to keep it simple. Try to go with workflows which are applicable for the whole world, to make it much more robust, and which is going also to facilitate later on your training and etc., etc. So that is really something which Flexo told us also up front, and which we try to stick to, and working like that. Communication, So engage HR and the business in the countries as from the beginning, which we have done and which worked very well. Start early enough with works councils if you have to go through that panel or whatever it is, because that takes a lot of time. And obviously, like always in every project, your leadership support is key. They need to stand behind it and go for it and also promote it. Change management, again, something to start from the beginning of the project. It's really critical that you get the noses of all HR in the same direction, but then followed by the business leaders. Because we were coming obviously from different ways of working. In some countries it was really pretty manual, which meant that everybody was kind of doing his thing. So we had really to bring that structure in there, and you can only do that when you start early enough. Staffing and resources, make sure you have good ones. But absolutely vital for the project is that you have good people, and for internally, put your best people on it, because that is really key to the success of the project. Functionally, be prepared to use single set of processes, and that is what we have done. So global workflows. For all employees, the same process. For managers, the same process. Wherever you were, in China or US or Bangladesh or New Zealand, it was all the same processes. Limited the localizations, and localizations means the small add-ons that you can do, which are really country specific. We have limited that to what was really needed to support governmental reporting. And all the others we did not do so far, and really started with a global approach. In the end, I think we have identified something like 120 basic fields of data that we are now populating and maintaining throughout the 38 locations. So concentrate on the important things. That's another thing. Don't go into exceptions and the nitty-gritty. And if something is coming up, think, is this really critical, or how many times is this going to happen? Or so, and if the answer is, yeah, it only happens, forget about it and don't spend your time on that thing. Stick to the scope and pay attention to reports. Reports is typically something that is kept for the end. All the rest needs to work first. But don't forget, you need reports as well to do checks and check your data. So pay attention to reports so that at least you have a number of basic reports that you can use to check your data. We call them audit reports in our company, but they are very, very useful. Data migration, that's another big one, especially for EC. For the other modules, it's a little bit less, but especially for EC, do not underestimate the duration and the complexity to bring everything together. So like I said, we went for something fields, but those 120 fields need to be populated and need to be uploaded. Another thing you need to think about is, do you want to upload historical data or not? And some companies, and a lot maybe, don't upload anything at all from the past, maybe just a higher date or something like that, and just populate the 120 fields as is today. We went a little bit further and we uploaded 3 years of historical data, which was a huge task. Luckily, I have good people in my team to do that. And we managed to get it done, but it's a matter of a lot testing up front and during the testing period to make sure that everything goes okay. Then interfaces, we did in the first 6 interfaces, a couple of payroll interfaces, but also interfaces with IT platforms. Yeah, you need technical people to be able to do that, that really understand how everything is linking to each other. But that refers to make sure you have good resources as well internally as externally. Then testing takes quite a lot of time in the project because after each iteration you need to test to make sure that the system is behaving the way it should behave. But at the same time, it's a good way to, we have done testing with the whole of HR, which at the same time provides a platform for them to learn the system. So it took quite some time, yes, but at the same time, half of your training is you went through them with the testing. And then the go live itself as well, plan for it, make sure you make big spreadsheet with all items that need to be done in consequential order and really chip them off one by one so that nothing is forgotten, but that also everything is done in the right order. But if you plan for it with enough time, it's not an issue. And then last but not least, it's a cloud solution. So you cannot tweak it to your desires for 100%. It is how would I say, it's a platform with a lot of stuff there. There are things that you can tweak a little bit, but take also an agile approach. The more you want to customize, the more complex you make it. And not needed because they are the HR best practices. If it works for company A and for B and for C, why would it not work for your company? Okay, there are some finesses, but that's okay to do. And for the rest, just follow whatever is there. That's my advice. So the next steps for us are now learn. So the technical go live was yesterday. Now we are in the process of putting on the courses and the material and then starting to train people. Onboarding and offboarding, we delayed a little bit because of Corona, because we needed people to come in, etc. And we cannot travel really during those times. So we have extended that to September, but that's really something that was beyond our control. And then once of the journey, then we are going to look further, what else can we do to bring it even more functionally, and how can it help us to reduce our admin or to bring added value to the processes that we want to have within allnex. We have chosen to work with Flexo as our implementer. So why did we do that? Because of this use of best practices that Dimitri was talking about. So they offer this accelerator model, which is nothing else as the best practices accumulated. They have quite some expertise, knowledge, training principles, learn to fish, which is good. Also, there is a lot of expertise in the company and in-house knowledge. Timing-wise, it was fitting perfectly with the journey that we wanted to undergo. So we are at the end, at least of the slides that I have prepared.
There are some questions.
If there are questions, please feel free to shout.
Yeah, there was one question we got in the chat concerning the Activate methodology that looks like waterfall. It's not a waterfall because you start with prepare, and actually in explore you do your exploration phase, but the realize phase is, and this is why you have those gray circles, etc., is actually an iterative approach. So actually, as Lieve said, we develop something as an integrator, it's tested, we get feedback, and this is the input for the next iteration again. So we did it time, and we actually did a third iteration, but it was a false iteration. After the user acceptance testing, we took in the last whatever feedback we had after user acceptance testing, and this was what put into production. So this is why it may look like a waterfall, but it's actually not. It's really agile, especially in the whole part in the building phase. Indeed, the exploration phase and the deployment phase is a one-time trade-off, but the whole building phase is indeed agile and not waterfall. I don't know if there are other questions.
Yeah, there was one other question asking about the payroll interface, whether this was just interfacing core data or whether it was also bringing in some other interfaces. So we have selected, built an interface from SuccessFactors to the payroll system with the core data that is available in SuccessFactors to avoid that we have to do a double input. But we did not bring in other data from other modules, for instance, so it's pure core based data.
Yeah, and just the integrations are with AFAS in the Netherlands, with SD in Belgium, and with ADP in the US.
Yeah.
So we had some, I mean, it was, and what we try to do with also with the IT team at allnex is to create one big channel going out of SuccessFactors into the cloud integration platform, and from there out split up the way of sending data in some way to ADP, in some other way to SD, another way to AFAS, and I forgot New Zealand and Australia, which is still another way of doing. But the idea was to pull in data in the cloud platform in one way, and from there split up so that we only had to do, I would say, one big interface out of SuccessFactors and then 4 out of the cloud integration. And eventually even for some parts we reused parts to send to the different providers. So yeah, we tried to reuse as much as we could. Again, it's all for costs and efficiency and maintainability in the long run.
Okay, thank you, Lieve. Thank you, Dimitri. I see there is one other question by Gert Verlin who says, what do you mean with the accelerated model by Flexo? I think, Dimitri, you're probably best.
So as I explained, the accelerator model of Flexo is we pre-package our best practices and our IP, and we use this as a starting point to develop to start the project. And the whole principle actually is reversed. So instead of going to the client say, okay, dear allnex, what would you like to have in your system? We take it the other way around. We have our best practices. We present those best practices to the client and say, okay, allnex, why shouldn't you use our best practice? And as Lieve said, once you see that, I mean, some best practices we have seen in, I would say 90% of our clients, when we challenge this, say, okay, why would you do it the other way around? There could always be a good reason. As Lieve said, there can be legal reasons in some countries, there can be some constraints, etc. But what we see with this approach is the timing of implementation. I mean, we actually win at least one iteration. In some where we only do it in one iteration, which goes even faster, depending on what you can accept for best practices. So this is the whole idea behind this, is really to leverage the knowledge we have brought in from Flexo from all our implementation and use those as a starting point for your project.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, see, the question was answered. Thank you very much. Yeah. Are there anyone else who has like a question or some remark they would like to raise? Please feel free. You can actually speak now.
Hey, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Harsh here, and I want to know how did you actually manage the process alignment? Any issue there, or you always gave priority to the Flexo provided best practices? Because for a global implementation, I think processes may be different, right?
Yeah, they were different to start with, and we have tried to streamline them. At the same time, bringing some of the workflows to managers and also to employees, but to a lower extent. I mean, employees, they can update their own personal data with an approval flow or some data without an approval flow. But for managers, I mean, we have rolled out processes like they can ask for a salary increase, they can ask for a promotion, they can ask for a new position with a business case. They can change business titles. I mean, there are a lot of things that we try to bring to because, and by building a business case, by putting in common fields and whatever, you also keep the logic why something was done, so you can always find it back later on. For me, that is one of the big advantages as well by doing it that way. You document while you are in the system.
Yeah, and also there is always a double side on it. It's from our side. So now I speak on the integrator part. Every time that there was a discussion about can we use this process globally, etc., we tried to push back, not for the reason of pushing back. It was more a question about trying to understand, and it's harder in the first modules because it's not yet the allnex could not feel it. But once they have understood that the maintenance afterwards, you have to maintain all the exceptions you would build in. You have to maintain them, you have to explain them, and you have to understand them even 2 years from now. This is why EXO to always challenge every time there was a fork in the road saying, oh, we want to do it the other way around. We said, okay, now, I mean, we can do it. Technically, it's there. It can have a cost impact or not. But do you really want to go this? And do you really want to maintain it in the long run? And I would say, I mean, then it depends. And as you said, some clients will be more inclined to go that road or not. But with allnex, it was, as Lieve said, keep it simple. And this was really what was driving the whole discussion. Say, okay, if there is no legal mandatory reason to make this move, then we're going to try to keep it in the global way. And I have to say, for EC, we managed to, I think 90%, 95% is really global and the rest is localized. But it was really for some specific reasons, because there are some payroll engines that had to run in some specific countries where if they extend the data model for them, or a process will. But I would say the performance process, for example, is globally throughout the whole company. They all use the same thing. There's 2 processes, one for white collar, one for blue collar, but it's the same process. And as you say, in New Zealand, in Belgium, and in the US.
And the other thing that we did that might help answer this question is the project team for EC was really a team with people from the different regions. So not Belgium-centered or not US-centered. So there were people from all bits of the world into that team. We only had 2 meetings live. All the rest was via Skype and video calls and whatever. But it was really, how would I say? Really like every 2 days we had a meeting of an hour to go through those things. How can we do it? How can we align? How can we make sure it stays global?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think if there are no more questions, I think we are at a position to actually close this first HR Masterclass. Once again, I would like to thanks Lieve for the wonderful presentation, and not only just for, you know, being the pioneer on this virtual platform, but also actually to prepare all this and share it with us. And I would like to thank Dimitri from Flexo to enable part of this entire setup and help us in realizing this session. I hope for everybody who attended today that it was useful, and I look forward to welcome all of you next Tuesday, again at 1:30, where Rutger will explain and share a little bit more about the SAP Human Capital localization and the work they are doing on that. Okay.
Steve, can I just jump in for a moment? The focus will, because we haven't been doing these masterclasses for so long, we'll mainly focus on the new functionalities in the on-prem system for this particular virtual masterclass. In the next one after that, we can look more at success factors.
Okay, good. Thank you for your input, Rutger. Okay.
And Steve, if there are any questions that pop up later, I would say, or there are some open, you have my email and the email of Tom and Lieve. Just send it through, and we can always answer them later.
Definitely will. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I wish you a very enjoyable afternoon next of the week, and above all, stay healthy. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.